Gojo was already the first sorcerer in 400 years born with both 6 eyes and Limitless, and that birth alone shocked every clan into submission. Now picture the same birth except Sukuna is already living inside him from day one, carrying his full technique fused with 6 eyes and Limitless inside one body that was never supposed to lose. But the biggest thing to understand first is this isn't really about how strong Gojo gets. It's about what happens to an entire world that suddenly has zero control over anything. Birth, the Gojo clan is already celebrating before anyone realizes what's actually in that crib, treating 6 eyes and Limitless arriving together for the first time in centuries as a historic moment. Then something wrong settles over the estate when Sukuna's cursed energy signature, the exact one that terrorized the Heian era for 1,000 years, starts radiating faintly off a newborn. The older sorcerers feel it before they understand it, and the ones who recognize the signature go pale immediately. The clan locks the situation down completely. This child does not leave the estate, and whatever is happening gets buried and studied internally, because the moment word gets out that the strongest bloodline in Jujutsu history is also hosting the King of Curses, every faction in the sorcerer world reacts at once. Childhood Gojo grows up exactly the way you'd expect, spoiled and untouchable, fully aware from an early age that nothing in the world can actually hurt him, except this version of that confidence isn't built on potential anymore, it's built on certainty. Even as a child, his cursed energy output reads as something closer to 2 fully grown special grade threats sharing one tiny body, and the adults around him learn fast not to provoke whatever sits quietly behind his eyes when he's irritated. Sukuna finds the entire situation deeply strange after 1,000 years of being feared and hunted, now finding himself lodged inside an infant who doesn't even fully register his presence, inside a clan that worships the child regardless of what's actually living inside him. There's no possession battle here the way there eventually is with Yuji, because Gojo's 6 eyes give him a level of perceptive control over his own cursed energy that makes Sukuna feel less like an invader and more like background noise he can simply tune out whenever he wants. Tokyo Jujutsu High, 2006. Gojo enters his second year at Tokyo Jujutsu High in 2006 alongside Suguru Geto and Shoko Ieri, the only 3 second years in their class. Geto, brilliant and principled, comes from a non-sorcerer background and wields cursed spirit manipulation, and the two of them strike up a friendship almost immediately despite their completely opposite worldviews. That same year, the two of them get sent to check on Mei Mei and Yutahime after losing contact with them for 2 days, and end up tearing apart a haunted mansion, holding the pair captive inside a time-manipulating barrier. Except this time, when Gojo cuts loose during the fight, something happens that's never happened in front of Geto before. A clean surgical slash that doesn't move like Limitless at all rips through the barrier's central anchor point, ending the technique completely before Gojo even finishes his usual taunting. Geto goes quiet for a second. He spent enough time around Gojo to know every quirk of how Limitless moves. And that wasn't it. Gojo brushes the question off with his usual deflection, but Geto files the moment away the same way he files everything, quietly, carefully, the way someone does when they suspect their best friend is carrying something he hasn't told them about yet. Gojo also forgets to put up a curtain during the mission, and the event ends up on the news, earning him a lecture from their teacher Masamichi Yaga back at school. Back in the classroom, Geto and Gojo get into their usual argument about whether sorcerers actually owe anything to the people they protect, Geto insisting it's their entire purpose, and Gojo finding the whole obligation exhausting. It's the same argument they always have, except this time, somewhere underneath Gojo's usual nonchalance, there's a flicker of something Geto's never quite picked up on before. A second presence, watching the conversation with mild curiosity, completely uninterested in either side of the debate. By the time Yaga interrupts to assign them their next mission, straight from Master Tengen, Geto has started keeping a private list of every small, strange thing about his best friend that doesn't quite add up. Riko Amanai. This is where everything in the original story gets rewritten completely. Yaga explains the mission. Master Tengen's immortality technique requires a merger with a compatible star plasma vessel every 500 years, and Gojo and Geto, the two strongest sorcerers in their class, are assigned to escort Riko Amanai safely to that merger. Toji Fushiguro, the sorcerer killer, gets hired by the Time Vessel Association to assassinate her before that merger can happen. In the original timeline, Toji uses the inverted spear of heaven, a cursed tool built to nullify cursed techniques, to neutralize Gojo's Limitless and defeat him before killing Riko. That weapon works because it's specifically designed to counter cursed energy-based techniques, which means it has no answer at all for dismantle and cleave, since those don't run through Gojo's own cursed energy signature the way Limitless does. So when Toji ambushes Gojo here, the spear shuts down Limitless exactly the way it did before, and for one brief moment Toji thinks he's found the same gap a second time. Then Dismantle fires completely on its own, separate from whatever the spear just neutralized and removes his sword arm before he can process what just happened. Toji, the single most dangerous non-sorcerer in Jujutsu history, built specifically to be invisible to cursed energy and untouchable by cursed techniques, has just been cut by something operating on a layer he was never built to counter. He retreats immediately, badly wounded, completely unprepared for an opponent with two separate, unrelated ways of ending his life. Riko Amanai survives, and the entire chain of consequences that originally leads to Tengen's failed merger, the Shibuya incident, and the culling game never gets triggered at all, and Geto never breaks. This is the change that ripples furthest through the rest of the timeline. In the original story, Geto's descent into villainy starts the moment he watches the Time Vessel Association celebrate Riko's murder, and that's the exact point where his entire ideology cracks and never recovers. Here, Riko gets to live, walking away from the merger and actually getting the life the original timeline robbed her of. Geto never has to watch civilians cheer for a teenage girl's death, so he stays exactly who he was before the mission ever started. Brilliant and a little arrogant, but never broken by what he saw. He does, however, remember the slash that tore through that time barrier back in August, and he remembers exactly how Toji lost an arm to something that wasn't limitless. Without that breaking point, there's no night parade, which means the arc that was supposed to permanently define Gojo's worldview instead becomes the moment his closest friend first starts quietly putting together exactly what's been living inside him this whole time. Yuji never becomes the vessel. Sukuna already has a host, and he's had one since birth, which means when Yuji Itadori finds that finger years later in Sendai, there's no empty vessel waiting for it. The finger is just a finger, dangerous the way any cursed object is, but without Sukuna's actual consciousness left to animate it the way it does in the original story, it never reactivates the King of Curses inside anyone. Yuji never becomes anyone's vessel, never gets pulled into Jujutsu High under threat of execution, and Megumi never partners with him on that first mission. The entire founding structure this whole story was originally built around simply never forms, which means somewhere out there a completely normal version of Yuji Itadori grows up never having to carry someone else's hunger for entertainment inside his own body. And Sukuna ends up somewhere he's genuinely never been in 1,000 years. Comfortable, though not free, since Gojo's control through Six Eyes makes sure there's no scenario where Sukuna ever takes the wheel the way he periodically does with Yuji, but also not constantly fighting for space the way he's used to. He simply exists quietly inside someone who is already entirely on his own, the strongest person alive, and a strange, almost respectful distance settles between them over the years. After spending a millennium searching for a worthy opponent and finding almost nobody, he's now permanently lodged inside the one person who might actually qualify, and he never gets to throw a single punch of his own to prove it either way. The Jujutsu world, this version of the story, looks almost nothing like the one we actually know, built around one absurdly overpowered sorcerer. Drop a comment below, and if you want more Jujutsu Kaisen what ifs just like this one, subscribe. We've got plenty more coming. See you in the next one.